Hello, Drunkduckers! Drunkduckers! I'm Ozone Ocean, and with me is Tance and Baines. Hello.
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 What's that, Baines?
Musical guest. Hanson. You sound like what's his name? Don Pardo.
Oh God, that's from Saturday Night Live. Back when it was still good.
Yes, all right.
Well, yes, so this week we're talking about censorship again, but now we're talking about the more contemporary application of censorship and how it is now. Not just the old-fashioned government-style censorship, but the censorship the way it works now. So it's not only like government censorship who are like attacking my freedom of speech. It's more like just generally people being deplatformed, having their voices taken away from all different reasons. They could be suffering cancellation. They could be suffering being banned for like this whatever internet company is just not liking their kind of content. So that could be the reason they're banned, or it could be just all many different reasons that you can have your online world taken away from you. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, we have to mention feature comic was a feature comic that I featured this week, and it was called Mr. Maneater. So take it away with me with Mr. Maneater. Hello, I'm Ozone Ocean, and my feature for the week was Mr. Maneater. Daniel is stuck on a lovely island, but he has to deal with a rather capricious ghost named Zips, who seems to have adopted him. She dragoons him into service, taking him around to deal with all the nasty supernatural issues on the island, of which he is not always fully capable of handling. Hopefully, this wild and unpredictable female ghost has a soft spot for poor Daniel. The art is all manga style in black and white. It's very honed and professional looking work. The story is a ghost action mystery with comedy. So there's quite a lot of things in this story style. It sort of encompasses all kinds of things, but yeah, it mainly gives you a an action mystery comedy. There's a lot of funniness in here, and it moves along very fast, so it's not a slow story. Anyway, I hope you enjoy Mr. Maneater. Mr. Maneater is by Jai, and it's rated M for mature. That was Mr. Maneater. Cool little comic there. Reminds me of that song by Hall & Oates.
Oh yeah.
She's a man-eater. Watch out, boy, she'll chew you up. I think that's the lyrics. I don't know. It's been so long since I heard it. Great little group there. I love the good old Hall & Oates. But we're not talking about Hall & Oates. We're talking about censorship. But before we get into that, we've got the Gun Wallace and his theme song. And he hasn't given us a theme this week because he's obviously too busy. So I'll have another best of. I got hundreds of best ofs that I can play again. So I will replay Theme 2, Tales from Two Tiny Titty Bars, Bouncing Boobs in the Club. This is a comic by Maniko, and this was originally from Quackcast 228, and it came out on the 6th of November 2017. So have another listen to Tales from Two Tiny Titty Bars. And that was our little musical replay of a best of. Hope you enjoyed that. Smooth tunes coming at you every week. All right, now censoring. So sensors are very important. I mean, that's what spaceships use to be able to find deep space anomalies, isn't it? They use their sensors. So, and also in the churches, they use a sensor with incense in it to sort of swing around and make everything smell good. So, there's various good applications for sensors. But the bad application for sensors is taking people's voices away. That's a very a bad application for censorship. So, government still does have a role in the modern day. I mean, we'll sort of introduce it. So, the way censorship used to happen was because we had limited ability for to get our voices out. So we had newspapers, radios, TV, and things like newsletters, which were very tiny in their distribution networks, and pamphlets and things like that. Very, very tiny in their ability to be distributed. So it was very easy for someone who didn't like what you were saying for them to stop you saying what you wanted to say. It could even be something like, "Oh, we're going to destroy the office where this printing press is happening," or cut off your ink supplies, stop paper getting to you, things like that. Cut down your radio masts.
Remove your license.
What's that?
Remove your license. Take away, revoke your license.
Take away licensing. Yeah, so there was all kinds of easy peasy ways to remove people's ability to get their voices out. Then the internet happened, and it was glorious. All you had to do was just pay for an internet connection. You could connect to the internet, and that would just be worldwide. You wouldn't be just, I'll set up a server and a website in my own country. You could be like, I don't know, in Benin or Belarus or whatever, and you'd be setting up a website over in America or I don't know, Oman or whatever, just anywhere, and that would be getting out to the whole world because there was no way to block it. It was just like, as long as you're online, then all the world would be able to see what you had, and there wasn't any favoritism. So there weren't any search engines that were kind of ranking things in order, saying, "Oh no, we don't want these kind of things. We only want these," like Google does now. See, Google Google used to be a do no evil sort of thing, but they dropped that from their slogan, and now they're as evil as crap. So they will rank. They'll only have certain social media sites will be at the top of their search ranking and things like this. So if you're on something like Drunkduck, it's not really going to be popularly shown. Anyway, so that's the thing. So what originally happened was it was all kind of laissez-faire. You could get stuff online, you could get your voice out, and it was very hard to block that because it was all over the world. And even when Twitter started and social media started, it seemed like that was enabling that, and that would give us even more ability to get our voice out. And we had this idea of public journalism, I think it was, or civilian journalism, some kind of thing like that. So everybody could be able to have an equal level of their voice and get stuff out. So that seemed like a good thing. But now, what's happened is these massive companies like Meta, which is basically Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, and various other things, has sort of taken a huge chunk. We have Google with their search engine, which is the biggest search engine in the world, controls what you see of everything, but they also own Android, which I use on my phone, lots of people use on their phone. They Gmail, which is a massive service. They own YouTube, which is the biggest video sharing service in the world, bar none. Various billionaires are part of this. Like we've got the guy who owns Jeff Bezos owns Amazon, so that's another big chunk of the internet because Amazon owns Amazon Web Services. Drunkduck's images are posted on Amazon Web Services. We use that, so a lot of people use Amazon because it's a major internet service, and of course people watch stuff through there. So anyway, so there's all these internet billionaires own massive chunks of the internet, which has funneled everything through these very narrow channels, just the way we used to have stuff funneled through narrow channels in the old days through TV, newspapers, radio. This is now funneled through narrow channels, which means it's very easy now to censor people for all kinds of reasons, and we will outline all the different ways people can be censored for right or wrong reasons. But government also still does this. Now government is able to one of the things government does is can cut off an entire service, which is like, okay, we're going to ban TikTok or YouTube or something from our whole country. Different governments have done this at different stages. Even Australia is going to go, my country is going to go, okay, no people under, 15 are allowed to have YouTube accounts. So that's censoring that in a way. So it's a selective censorship. That's censoring people from being able to even look at YouTube or have a lot of social media accounts if they're too young. And, we might agree with that, because it is certainly a bad thing developmentally for children to have access to social media. I agree with that, but how do you implement rules for that being fair? And does this mean children, who are the very tiny proportion of most societies, especially first world societies, are basically controlling what the rest of us can do? Because that means if you're an adult person wanting to access anything on the internet, the only way to ensure that you're not a child is that make sure you age verify yourself. So that means the massive majority of the population is forced to verify their age and identity if they want to access internet services. That's what that thing will lead to. It's not in place now, but that's the only way to do it, which is stupid and moronic. So that's a bad thing. Anyway, so government
since we are on that subject, afterwards I will forget. So I want to just drop my 2 cents on that. I'm like you said, I'm very for keeping kids offline if they are younger than 15, 16 years old, for a lot of reasons. Some of them developmental, others completely social. Socialization is a very a delicate process that has to happen offline. So there's that. But how to implement this rule is easy if you actually want to implement it. And what I mean about this is that they are going about it using children, and they do that for a lot of things. Like, think of the children, and in a way, like they are using the children as their spearhead to kill certain things for adults. Whereas the easiest way to implement this is exactly how you implement an age limit for driving, right? You don't have to verify yourself before you get into a car. But if you are caught, you are a minor and you are caught driving, at least over here, the ones that get prosecuted for this are your parents. So what would be an easy way to do this is that, kids are not supposed to be online. If your kids are caught online, it's you. You are the one that's going to be answering for that.
Yeah.
So I would provide them with a means to make it possible for the kids to access the internet. And one way to do that is, first of all, to have all the parental controls for machines in the house, and also make it illegal for kids to have smartphones. Just give them phones that are very, very primitive, so that they can call their parents or the cops. And that's it.
Yes, I agree.
So,
dumb phones.
And exactly. So then, guess what? They won't be able to go on the internet. And if they do go on the internet, their parents will answer for it. And that's. We're done.
Yeah, that's a good way to make it through their parents, so rather than giving them their own independent ability to do this kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's one of the ways. It's like often the governments are dumb. So they're run by a lot of different people with a lot of different objectives and stuff like that. And people think, oh my God, the government's wanting to do this. But the government's just run by too many people with too many ideas. And so the government's not like usually evil. It's that certain people are able to weaponize this dumbness and to get their things, get their objectives in by just sneaking it through. So, that's what happens like with Donald Trump. And I mean, Donald Trump is evil. But his group is not directly controlling the government, because that's not how government in America works. It's like, okay, so this big, beautiful bill that happened. So the only way to get that across was to be able to have a lot of people, ratifying it and voting on it. And there were some unpopular things in it, like, say, his plan to move the space shuttle from the Smithsonian to Houston. So he wasn't able to directly have that in the bill, but people were able to sneak it in there and to get it through. And that's the same kind of thing with this internet censorship with young people. So like Tant says, you do the whole thing at the crap of, oh my God, think of the children. So what they do is they use that as their catch cry, their war cry. And all the morons go, oh yeah, oh God, we've got to think of those children. We have to protect those children. Oh my God. Not thinking that, the children don't actually need their level of white knighting. So what happens is these sneaky groups who do want to persecute adults use that as their little wedge of getting in. Exactly what you're saying, Tans. So rather than the government wanting to do that, the government doesn't give a shit. They just want to be popular with voters because they think that the children thing's gonna, oh my God, the voters are gonna love this. Oh my God, this is gonna make us popular. They're too dumb to even understand. It's these sneaky people.
I agree. But I would also add, there is a term that we have in Greek that doesn't have a direct translation, like a direct match in English. The term is like, if I were to direct translate it, it's an adjective, and it is stupid sly. And that means someone that is inherently unintelligent, trying to be sneaky and sly, and go behind the backs of people, but because they are stupid, anyone that is not, on their level, they can see through the ploy. So they try to be sneaky, and they might be sneaky, but their plan is very transparent. If anyone pays attention to it, like, that's the context of the term. So that's exactly what governments are. And why do I say this? Because, yeah, they are extremely unintelligent, but they absolutely love the control that something like think of the children, gives them. So they're not doing it just for the votes. They are doing it because being able to censor and get their control on different aspects of people's personal lives is going to give them more control, more of a grip on everyone's daily living. And that means more of a chance to exploit this in many different ways.
Oh yeah, of course, you can weaponize rules once they're in place. You can make use of it. I just think that it's not often directly the governments that are wanting to I mean, because like I'm saying, like, government isn't just like a monolith. It's not like, oh my God, we are the government. It's all like a bunch of, at least in Australian government, you got a whole bunch of these disparate people who are into these positions. And they come from legal backgrounds, they come from real estate agents, unions, all these kind of things. And doctors and lawyers and tradesmen, and so they don't really have kind of plans to do stuff to people. So it's easy to manipulate groups of people based on like common ideals. So as long as you can rally them under a simple common catch cry, then you can manipulate them as long as you can hide your thing within that. So that's what I'm saying. Within the government, there are various agencies like talking about the Australian government again, but this applies to everyone. Everyone has like we have both national kind of secrecy services, and then we have international. So in Australia, like ASIO is like our international spy agency. I don't even know what our local one is. But in America, they've got the FBI, they've got NSA, and they've got the CIA. In Greece, I suppose you've got like a bunch of different agencies, don't you? Like you'll have the
the equivalent of the CIA.
Yeah, and
it's called KIP.
Oh, go on.
And we do have we have KIP. It used to be called KIP. Now I don't exactly remember what the acronym is. It's again 3 letters. And we also have, and that's like the running joke of the last 5 or 6 years. We also have the quote-unquote Greek FBI, which is stupid because we are not a federation, so there is no way to have anything federal. And we definitely are not, they are not efficient. Even like in today's measures, they are not as efficient. Like the first joke of the Greek FBI was that all the agents that were assigned to this agency got doxxed, like immediately, within the first week. So yeah, but we do have those. We have these 2 agencies.
So they don't work real well. It's in Canada. You have them in Canada as well, I imagine.
Yeah, we have a Canadian Intelligence Service, or the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
Okay.
And we have another service for specifically about cyber attacks and internet. And there's at least one other one. Yeah.
And they probably work very closely with the US.
I would imagine so. You never hear about these in popular. You don't hear about these agencies very much, even as Canadians.
Yeah. I did hear that they used to, but now Trump wants to pull out of the Five Eyes, so they are not as close as they used to be.
Well, I mean, my point is that these agencies, they're the ones who would take advantage of those extra laws, and people within those agencies are the ones who would go, yep, okay, we should sort of introduce these rules. Yeah, that's a good idea. And they're the ones who would be behind it rather than the government itself. It's the agencies within the government, because these people would find those rules and laws very useful for doing their jobs, which is, invading people's lives. So, and then you have other groups who would come on board and then find it very useful for invading people's lives. Say in Australia, that would be like tax agencies. Like, I can more easily see what people are spending their money on now. And then there would be different agencies again, like I don't know, there's tax, and then there's it could be child welfare, which is a good thing. Then there would be other agencies, I don't know, that would get in and use this stuff to spy on you in various ways. But yeah, I mean, that's an example of the government, how it can still censor stuff and how it can still get on board with things. But the government is only a small part of this issue. And one of the other things the government doesn't like is porn. Think of the children. So that's always a way of weaponizing this stuff, because you could tell people, oh my god, there's porn out there. There's porn out there. And that can scare people away from the internet and encourage them to be supportive of restrictions and all this kind of stuff. But
yeah.
Okay.
And I have to just add that those that are the biggest, like the loudest voices for thinking of the children because there is porn out there or whatever else, are the ones that are most often caught having very questionable hard drives. So There's also that.
Always.
So,
For some reason, that's a weird thing. It's a
yeah.
weird correlation. But
Yeah,
okay, so
they think of the children a little too much. So
that's what
yeah.
I always wonder. Yeah, whenever I see anything, like whenever there was like when I was still on Facebook and someone would go, "Oh my God, Catch a Predator! Oh my God, yeah! Oh my, that show caught all the predators," and I'm thinking, you're a bit too into that show. You're a bit too for all this stuff. Yeah, I'd rather not see it at all. In my opinion, But yeah, that's what I always wonder when people are a little bit too interested in those subjects. Either way, you can tend to think, well, suspicious. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about different ways of it. So let's look with the government can tackle this stuff. So it's not just the government, remember. So we have the private industry also takes people's rights away. And so we've got to clarify. So last week we were talking about specifically government censorship and how that works with things like freedom of speech. Okay? And now freedom of speech, as it applies in America at least, or freedom of expression, does not, and those laws like the United States has the thing called the Fifth Amendment, which protects your right to, speech. And it started out being political speech, but then it just became any speech. But that does not apply to public speech, which means no, what I mean public speech. It does not apply to private industries having to provide you a platform no matter what. It only applies to governments like censoring you and imprisoning you for what you say. So private industries are perfectly within their rights to take away all your rights, so to speak, to express yourself. And they can do that with no fear of legal ramifications. They can totally silence what you say. So can other public individuals. They can do that, and those laws are different from in different countries. It's not always the same rules in different countries. So maybe there could be some legal recourse, but mostly there isn't. So that's an important thing. So how does private industry censor people? Well, most often it is just the same as the way we were talking about government. In that, people go, oh my God, protect the children, whatever. That means that private individuals who have anything like that is deemed sexual, or even if it's not sexual, people who just deem it so it's sexual, which means suddenly, oh my God, we have carte blanche to censor what this person says because we've deemed that what they do or what they've shown or what they've said is somehow like against our version of public decency. So we're just going to delete their entire online presence almost. That's basically what it has started to come down to with certain people. Now, we've talked about on our video cast, we talked about how female nipples are disproportionately targeted for some reason, versus male nipples. So again, it's an unfair, very sexist thing. That means that men and women are not equal in their ability to express themselves online in various ways. But more than that, it means like anybody who's just like displayed like any like part of their body or something, or just said something that is deemed sexual by Meta, the people who own Facebook or whatever, can find every single one of their accounts banned. Not just their like an account they might have used to display more kind of I don't know, spicy imagery, but their normal family account that they used to connect to their family and friends can be banned as well. And then that can impact like their email accounts and things, and their email accounts is what they use to access their OneDrive, with all their all their imagery and their files and stuff that can be taken away. It could be like their email they use to access their phones. That can be taken away, and then they can't have no access to their phones, and they can't contact their family. It can be these kind of things just go on and on and on, and so it can be incredibly harsh and bad.
And low key, I would argue even low key illegal. The news is going around that your Google Drive, could be like purged or taken away from you, or you could be banned and locked out of it, and lose all your personal files if what you have stored in there violates their terms of service. And we're not talking about illegal material. We're talking about if who owns Google? I forget.
Alphabet is the company that owns it now.
Okay, so if they don't like your political views, they can say that they violate their terms of service and just lock you out of your account and not allow you to retrieve your files in any way. So they basically steal your intellectual property. So that's one thing. Plus, if assuming that you just keep the files in your drive and don't publicize them anywhere, for them to know that this breach their terms of service, whatever that those terms are, it means that they have gone into your drive and scanned through your stuff without permission.
Yeah.
So that is illegal. Exactly.
And as we were saying before, a lot of the people who are impacted by this are the people who are least able to cope with it. They're least able to have any recourse. So they can't have any legal recourse because they can't afford it. And they'll never be able to afford it. So if the law is on their side, it's irrelevant because they haven't got money to enact the laws. So because they can't afford a lawyer. So yeah. Or can't afford a lawyer good enough to be any good against the lawyers that Google can afford.
Yeah. And, as an aside, the fact that access to justice and even access to justice with some quality representation or quality like support, legal support, whatever that is, the fact that it hinges on whether you have money or not is indicative of the lack of democratic or actual democratic rule internationally, because that is an international fact that you do not have access to a judge if you don't have the money for it. So
it's a human rights issue.
Exactly. And they don't care about the children then if the child is too poor. So
never do.
Exactly.
But so that is a way that private industry can take away your voice and can remove your freedom of expression, very much so. And we often say when what's his name? There were these horrible people, not Joe Rogan, but the other one, whatever his name is. I don't know. Anyway, so there were some right-wing media commentators, and they were going blah, 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 and saying hateful things and, encouraging all kinds of badness. And they were deplatformed for a lot of services, and people were, very supportive of that.
Alex Jones?
Alex Jones, there you go, Alex Jones. Yeah. But people were very supportive of that, saying, yes, this is not government censorship because this is private industry taking away his voice. That's okay. So, ha, 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 ha. And, we agree with that because this guy did say some horrible stuff. But then again, we can go, ha, ha, ha. But this can happen to anyone, even the good guys or just normal guys and little guys. We're all able to be targeted in that same way. So unfortunately, I think unfortunately that the issue there is that shouldn't be a company, that shouldn't be a private industry thing deplatforming him. It should have been a government thing they should have enacted the laws in a way that targeted him because he was encouraging violence, encouraging people to be harmed. So that should have been a government issue, and it shouldn't be a private industry thing. So anyway, that's my point. Go on, Tom.
No, I agree. I absolutely agree with that point. And I would say that Alex Jones was deplatformed correctly because it's not just that he was disseminating toxic opinions, it was that he was disseminating false information, which is illegal. Again, we go back to the whole illegal thing. But what you said gives, helps me say another thing. There should be a very clear and specific differentiation in the types of platforms that should be allowed. Like platforms where you have gigantic masses of people engaging in all kinds of different discourse, like a public forum, basically, should be regulated and owned and governed by an international agency, like the United Nations or something like that. And only platforms that are very limited for a very specific reason should be allowed to be owned by private interests of any kind. And I'll give an example. Like when you have something like Twitter, where everybody goes to basically participate in the common discourse and exchange ideas and the form of ideas, basically, which is a human right. So when you get to that level, it has to be internationally owned so that nobody can control this thing. Whereas, for example, I'll give you a very easy example. In the game I play, which is an MMARPG. Anyway, the RPG that is, mass interactive with many players and stuff like that, and cooperations. It has a small chat service that allows you to communicate with the fellow players so that you can understand, how to coordinate attacks against bosses and so on and so forth. And you can also socialize if you like. So, but this is a very limited platform for very limited use. So that should be allowed to be private and also have specific rules governed by the private agency that, like private company or whatever it is that has it. But not something that impacts politics and impacts entire populations in the way that like Facebook or Twitter or what's the other thing?
Instagram.
I don't know. Yeah, Instagram. All of that advertises itself as a place to participate in the forum of ideas, and this should be internationally owned, should not be allowed to be owned by any private or even government agency.
Regulated, I would say, rather than owned.
Yeah, I would say that it should be internationally regulated and owned, so that it will not be controlled by any state and any private interest as much as possible.
Well, that's what they did with internet domain name ownership, isn't it? Those things are by a sort of a semi-government body. The whole, DNS, all that kind of stuff. Forgive me if I'm getting it wrong, but the whole domain name system is sort of partially government, and it's set up to be sort of academic and all this kind of stuff, so it can't be directly impacted by bad government players or bad private players. So yeah, that's a good idea to have those things when they reach a certain user level base. So like, oh my god, this thing's got 4 billion users, even 5 million users basically, but in the millions, that's a good reason. But in the billions, then government regulation. because that's what we had with TV channels in the old days. You had like a whole bunch of TV channels, and we sort of still have that, don't we? I mean, even with digital TV, they're often government regulated. And I think they're privately owned, but they still have to go with the government regulations. And these international things, yeah, like Facebook Meta is an American company, right? But as you say, it's got an international user base, so it should be like the whole domain name kind of thing. It should be internationally regulated. That's a good idea, and not necessarily internationally owned, because I'm not sure how that would work. Because you'd be privatizing something that is you'd be not the opposite of privatizing. You'd be taking it into public ownership that is privately owned, and that is
nationalizing. But in this case, it would be like yeah. Well, it is unpopular with whom though? Because the guys that promote it as super unpopular are the ones that would benefit the least from it. So
I know, but it would be very controversial, and they would be the people who own it would fight against that in various ways, which would make any regulation a lot harder.
Yeah, this is where the meme that goes, "Oh well, anyway." Would be that's why you know why I'm saying this. Oh, go on.
I was saying that's why I think that encouraging to be publicly regulated the same way we do TV and radio would be the better choice rather than forced nationalisation. It introduces other complications, because if you can force nationalise things like that, then you can do other things. It's like the laws of unintended consequences, and it's like what we were saying when we go, think of the children, and we introduce different laws, for adults to identify themselves, and then governments can manipulate those rules in order to expand them and use that together, get your details and spy on you. If we introduce forced nationalisation, then governments can manipulate that in order to go, okay, we don't like this group, we're going to take away their assets, that kind of thing. So
yeah, well, you know what, and this is another thing. Yeah, I agree that this can be, pretty much anything can be a slippery slope, but I would suggest, and I would even argue that if you truly want to avoid the slippery slope, or the unintended consequences and stuff, the one thing that you should do is set such rigid margins about what can be done when, that it is impossible to slide further down, if you know what I mean. Like, for example, if you say, okay, listen, if your platform acquires these 5 traits that are quantifiable and not estimated, quantifiable, measurable by these measures, like number of users, number of impressions, blah, 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 whatever. I have not thought about this, so I don't know what, all the parameters should be, but only very concrete, very measurable things. So if that happens, you are obliged to give up control of this thing, the specific things, not the entire thing necessarily, but you should be able to give up control, at least of the regulation, if not the ownership, to an international committee. So if you do that, then you cannot slide further, because you would need to complete all these very measurable elements that have nothing to do, for example, with ideology or whether we like the platform or not. That's what I'm saying. Like, if you really want, exactly as with the children, if you really want to protect the children, you can, without attacking adult life. And the same goes for these things. It's just that, everyone is snugged into this idea that, this can be very dangerous because it can go this way or that way, but only if that attacks very specific interests, because if it goes the other way, nobody thinks twice. Like, think of all the stuff that has been abolished that was benefiting, middle class or working class or whatever, without a second thought. Like, tough luck, hard times, there goes your Medicare or something like that. And it's not that happening in the United States. Over here, the entire government state apparatus was gutted in the name of public interest. So,
yeah, I agree. It is a complicated situation and has to be handled quite carefully. Well, we've got 15 minutes left, so we've got to tackle the other arm of censorship, as in public outrage. The public, what it's called, cancelling now, isn't it? Cancel cult. Like, I was never really into that whole thing. It sort of just went over my head. I was never like in any side of it, like, oh my god, cancel culture is so bad, or I want to be part of it, or whatever, because I just I quit Twitter at that stage and really wasn't following any social media that strongly, so it was something I looked at from an outsider's perspective and watched people complain about it for various reasons. So, but that is another kind of branch of the world of censorship, so to speak. And again, we have to reiterate the idea that, okay, so this isn't like, government censoring, and it's not like your freedom of, what is it? Freedom of expression. The American idea is the whole Fifth Amendment. It's nothing to do with that, because it's not government, doing anything against you. Okay, so we've gotten out of that. But all right. So one of the things about the so-called cancel culture is that this isn't the left wing that's doing this to people. This could be any wing that does it to people. Anybody can be persecuted for any reason at any time. It doesn't matter what political persuasion they're in, and it happens. The right does this to you, the left does this to you, and people on the center will do this to you for various reasons. It doesn't follow political boundaries. Some things can, but in general, it can happen for any reason. So that's an important thing to realize. Like, people have this idea, oh my god, the left has this cancel culture where they will cancel me for, like not liking trans people, or they'll cancel me for being against women's rights or something like that. Like, yeah, sure, that does happen to people, but it is equally likely that you could suffer cancelization because you supported gay rights, and a whole bunch of right-wing people didn't like that, or you liked some sort of song that wasn't deemed good anymore. Like, what's this? Baby, It's Cold Outside. Maybe people think, oh my god, liking that, oh god, you like abuse and all this kind of thing, because that's how we interpret this song now, or whatever. So it could be, or people will like cancel people who they've deemed to be like having interest in minors, and that doesn't follow political boundaries. Like, both the right and the left don't like that idea. So yeah, it's universal. But anyway, that is a way people can lose their voice online for various reasons. Sorry, time's gone.
Yeah, no, I was going to say that there has always been, like, quote unquote cancel culture has always been part of the human condition. Anyone that has a following, whether online or offline, will and needs the ad populum logical fallacy, will rally their following to support And what I mean by that is that that's why this is an actual logical, it has a name, this logical fallacy of look how many people agree with me, ergo I am correct. So in order to do that, what do? You go to the people that you know are going to agree with you because they're you, and you rally them to agree with you very loudly so that you will quote unquote win an argument. So yeah, cancel culture and the swarming of people against someone that is an outsider or someone that has an opposing opinion is something that has never left us. From the schoolyard to political forums to what have you. This has always been a thing. It's not something new, and it's not a symptom of the internet. And what I will say is that, oh yeah, go on.
Saying it's not a symptom of the internet, but the internet does use it in its own way.
Yeah, because it is it's like a medium, so it will be expressed within the parameters of the medium. So yeah, it will be different. But for example, more amplified, more international in certain ways, or even more egregious because it can follow you to other aspects of your life.
Like family
So
life and all that kind of thing.
yeah, family, work life, what have you. So yeah, it does exist and it will always exist. The thing is that, again, what do we actually want to do with it? Because most people complain about it when it happens to them or their own, not when it happens to people they would like to excommunicate, whatever that may mean.
Well, I will do that though. I will complain about people who aren't people I like. Like when the whole Trump thing happened years ago, like when Trump encouraged these people to take over the Capitol building in Washington because he didn't like the result and being voted out. He wanted to illegally, create a revolution basically. So these people marched on the Capitol. These morons marched on the Capitol. And I remember one of them was one of the voice actors from SpongeBob.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Freaking idiot that did that. But there was a whole lot of public people that did this. And, what happened was, various people would record these idiots marching. And then they'd disseminate the photos and go, oh my God, this person, we've got to find out who it is. And, institute some kind of legal stuff against them. Or, and especially that's useful if they did like attack police people or attack, people in the Capitol building, of course. But so this guy just like would marched and screamed like an idiot, and his image was people recognized him as this comedian, this actor from SpongeBob, and he lost his job over this. He's no longer able to be like a voice actor on the show. And personally, I don't like those views. I think that was incredibly dangerous for these people to have attempted this. But that's him doing something wrong and stupid. But I don't think he should have lost his job over that.
Yeah,
I'm totally against that. I think that's incredibly wrong that guy lost his job, and anyone else that were their employers were embarrassed or ashamed by people broadcasting the image online and sort of like embarrassed into firing those people. I think that's wrong. And that's coming from a person who does not support those views.
Yeah, but I would say, especially in that example, because there are other examples that are less out there, I would say. But in this specific example, yeah, he may not have marched in the Capitol, but he was there supporting everybody else that was marching in the Capitol. So basically, that is illegal. You are supporting a stasis, basically, an insurrection. So that is illegal. And what I'm saying is not that you shouldn't do any resurrection. By all means, if you want to do that, try. But you have to know that if you lose, you are going to be on the wrong side of the law. That's just how the things work. So yeah, he lost his job because he was doing something illegal, and that is something.
The legality or illegality doesn't apply to his work though. That's outside
But it does.
of it.
It does though, because think about it. Like, for example, I'll give you another example, because there is, like, especially in a culture where you can be fired over any reason, that is enough of a reason for an employer to fire you if they don't agree with you and they don't want you in their workplace for various reasons. Like, imagine that he goes next day to work alongside the Biden supporter. How is that going to be a workplace environment that is peaceful, for example?
Well, there's that, like, from my perspective, I'm just not going to agree with this thing, because his illegality, that might mean, like, if it's an imprisonable offense, then it's an imprisonable offense, and then you can't employ someone who's in jail because they can't do the work. But if he's not, then you shouldn't fire them. That's
I will disagree on that, and I'll explain why. I'll give you another example, more recent. So in this Jubilee thing that I mentioned in the previous video, where there were people that knowingly and of their own volition publicly came out as Nazis when they were trying to argue against a leftist, like it's one leftist versus 20 right-wingers that turned out to be not right-wingers, but far-right. Nazis, basically. And they actually said, like, yeah, I'm a fascist, woo-hoo, And so the guy that said this, next day lost his job because his employer didn't want to have a loud, out and proud fascist on the job. And honestly, if I had an employee and they came out as a Nazi or a fascist, I would fire them, even if that made me, like, even if I had to pay a severance pay or whatever it was, I would fire them. I wouldn't want them in my workplace because I don't feel safe having a fascist or a Nazi on my workplace for a lot of reasons. So yeah, you have to consider that when you publicize certain things, there may be consequences that come with that.
I'm just not going to agree with it in this term, because I'm also thinking about it like, say if this person had their they marched in a gay parade and in a pride parade, and someone said, look, oh my God, we don't support this kind of thing, it's a family-owned business, blah blah, we don't like, and you were on the news and we saw you there, and we're going to have to fire you for that, because how are we going to interact with our extremely Catholic people? It's
the difference.
So I can't agree with that either.
Yeah, sure. I don't agree with that either. But that is against the law. You can't discriminate against sexual preference.
But it's not always. The law can be like saying, being gay is illegal, and there are laws. Sometimes
that would be
no
against human rights.
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like, for example, there are countries.
If something applies to one person, it applies to all of us. So
it can. However, there is such a thing as human rights. Being gay is a human right. You cannot be prosecuted for that. Being Nazi is not a human right. That's what I'm saying.
I would agree with you, but human rights are not applied equally in different countries. And
yeah, and that is a whole different can of worms about whether that should have been allowed in this day and age. Whether we are Call is about to end.
Time is about to end. Well, then we should say goodbye. So this has been Quackcast number 751. Thanks, Tons of Baines. This was a lovely, contentious cast.
Yeah, and look at that. We were able to discuss things without actually going at each other's throat. It's amazing. It's
Yes.
just there are adults in the room. Like, it's amazing. So magic happens.
We banned Baines from speaking though, so
yeah,
we are at fault.
Yeah, we had to do that. We had to do
I'm too angry
because we are against them. We are against orange furs. Like, I'm sorry, babe.
Exactly. Oh, we're very bad for that. So yeah. So you heard it here, folks. We're hypocrites. We're against censorship and we're enacting it at the same time. Absolute terrible hypocrites. That's what we are.
It's the last acceptable prejudice against orange Sasquatches.
Gingers. Basically, you're a full body ginger, Baines, which means there's.
Yeah. Although I also have ginger hair, like, I am accepted, but Baines isn't.
That's right.
Because
we
are using many many different rules of thumb or whatever it is. I don't have the expression right now.
We're all levels of hypocrisy here. You know, we're even being hypocrites against our own hypocrisy. So. At least we're consistent. All right. Goodbye,
or
people.
Maybe it is. I'll just add that. Like, maybe it's because female ginger hair is legal, but male ginger hair is illegal.
Exactly.
It's the nipple contention, but reversed.
Exactly. Okay, bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks very much for
listening
to Quackcast 751.
Bye.